I buy over 100 books a year, but I study and take copious notes on only 1 or 2 every year. Here are the 14 books I reread at least once a year and have endless written notes on in no particular order that allow me to scale my businesses to 10 million plus in revenue. Number 1 is How to Make a Few $1 billion. So one thing you'll notice throughout this list is that every author is someone who's extremely admirable. And for me, there's somebody that I would like to emulate, and they've taken a career path that I personally would like to replicate. I only read books where either the author is someone I want to be like and emulate, either the person being written about in an autobiography is someone I want to be like and emulate, or the book is recommended by someone that, again, I want to be like and admire, just speaking completely transparently. So in the case of How to Make a Few $1 billion, the author is Brad Jacobs, who started 7 companies from scratch and led each to become a billion or multi-billion-dollar enterprise. I mean, like, just think about that. He started 7 separate companies and scaled all to either a billion or a multi-billion-dollar valuation. And in the book, How to Make a Few $1 billion, he walks through exactly how he did it. Now, book number 2 is The Hard Thing About Hard Things. The author in this case is Ben Horowitz, and he is by far my favorite entrepreneur and CEO of all time. And in the book, The Hard Thing About Hard Things, it's essentially a biography of how Horowitz scaled Opsware, which is one of his companies, from nothing and later sold it to HP, the computer company, for $1.6 billion in cash. Book 3 is Wooden on Leadership. So John Wooden, for those of you who don't know, is considered the greatest NCAA basketball head coach. He was the head coach of the UCLA Bruins, and they won 10 championships in a 12-year period, including 7 in a row. And I'm pretty sure they had 4 seasons with a perfect 30-0 record. And his philosophy on leadership is directly applicable to leading and scaling a company through building an exceptionally strong team and leading them to success. And here's the thing, 100% of my leadership skills come from this book. Number 4 is The Road Less Stupid, Advice from the Chairman of the Board. So this was originally recommended to me by an entrepreneur doing about 80 million a year who has a very similar business model to me. Quite frankly, the easiest way to explain the value of this book is to explain a quote from Charlie Munger where he says, "It's not supposed to be easy, and anyone who finds it easy is stupid." So, and really this book helped me tremendously in making less dumb decisions and taking a more rational, thoughtful approach to scaling my company, because the author, Keith Cummings, has been there and he's done it. Number 5 is Never Enough, From Barista to Billionaire. So there probably isn't another author who I want to emulate more than I do Andrew Wilkinson, who wrote Never Enough. I see my life trajectory going in a very similar direction as his, since he started out with a design agency early on, back when he was, I think he was like 20 or something. And I started out a marketing agency when I was 17. And after his design agency, Andrew then went on to build buying businesses and building a hold called Tiny, which fast forward to today has made him a billionaire, probably and so. And in the book Never Enough, again, it's a biography on how he quite literally went from a barista to a billionaire. And in 2025, I'll most likely be acquiring my first business, which I didn't start and I won't be operating. And I've taken a lot of inspiration from Andrew and his book Never Enough. So number 6 is A CEO Only Does 3 Things. So one of the most difficult things about being particularly a new CEO is knowing, like, what are those activities? What should you be doing on a daily basis when you wake up? What should you be doing, right? It's a very difficult question to answer, especially when starting out. But this book, as the title suggests, really shows you exactly where your focuses should be going to generate the highest return possible. And if you want to know what the 3 things are, it's culture, people, and numbers. And this Trifecta Focus has served me tremendously well. Okay, so number 7 is The Warren Buffett Way. And I mentioned earlier that this year I'm slowly transitioning my focus into building a holdco, or holding company is what that stands for, which owns multiple subsidiaries beneath it with exceptional managers running each company. I mean, that's literally the Berkshire Hathaway playbook. Whilst this particular book, The Warren Buffett Way, primarily focuses on Buffett's public market activity, it's been the most useful and tactical book I've ever read on investing, whether it be in public markets or private markets. And this was also recommended by Andrew Wilkinson, actually, as a book that he read that he found significant value in. And again, whenever I hear someone I want to emulate recommend something, I listen. So that takes us actually into number 8, which is the Berkshire Hathaway letters to shareholders from 1963 to 2023. So put it this way, imagine for a second if there was a way that you could get into the mind of somebody that you deeply admire and you want to be like. Essentially a way to completely understand their way of thinking and step by step how they got to where they are today that you admire so much, and all the decisions they made to get them to that point, along with understanding their failures, how they learned from those failures and improved, and most importantly, a way to understand their decision-making process, then immediately see how those decisions played out in real life. Were they successful? Were they not? And how did they adapt? Imagine if there was a way to get into somebody's mind and see all of that. Well, in my opinion, the Berkshire Hathaway's letters to shareholders is literally a magnifying glass into the mind of Warren Buffett. I personally found it quite a difficult read, and it's a long read since it compiles every annual report of Berkshire Hathaway from 1963 to 2023 way. I think it's about 2,000 pages long, depending on what you're reading on, but it's by far the most valuable book that you can read on investing, logic, how to value businesses, how to identify able and honest management, and ultimately how to run a holdco. Okay, number 9 is Great Leads by Mark Ford or Michael Masterson. So David Ogilvy, the godfather of advertising, once said, when you have written your headline, you have spent 80 cents out of your advertising dollar. Or in other words, the lead or opening of your advertisement, no matter what platform you're advertising on, whether it be Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, cold outbound email, DMs, TV ads, whatever it is, the opening is the most important part of the ad. And in fact, when I write any new ad, I personally spend about 80% of my time on the headline or the lead, and really only 20% of my time on the actual body. It's that important. And Michael Masterson, which is the pen name of Mark Ford, as I said before, built Agora Financial, which is a $1 billion publishing company in the online space. And he wrote the book Great Leads, which is the most actionable copywriting book I've ever read, since it literally walks you through the copywriting process behind how he built Agora Financial into a $1 billion plus company. I personally found that quite valuable. And he specifically, as the name suggests, focuses on the leads or the openings of the ad. He doesn't really go too much into the body or the CTAs or whatever else, between 10 and 20 different leads that he, writes about. And the entire book just focuses on those leads, which again, as David Ogilvy said, that's 80% of your ad. And that, in my opinion, is why it's also so actionable and so valuable, because at least for me, it gave me such a big return on my time. Okay, book number 10 is Who? The A Method for Hiring. So this book was also recommended to me by a great multi-8-figure entrepreneur, and it's now the exact hiring process that I use at my company, which has allowed me to hire roughly 25 of the smartest people in my industry. And I simply rinse and repeat this exact same hiring process that Jeff Smart and Randy Street lay out in this book. Number 11 is Take Their Money by Kyle Milligan. So now let me put it this way. If there were only 2 books I could read for the rest of my life on advertising and copywriting specifically, the first one would be Take Their Money by Kyle Milligan, and the second will be number 12, which I'm going to get onto here next. However, Take Their Money is a copywriting book, but the concepts discussed apply to advertising and marketing overall, and it served as the foundation to my overarching advertising philosophy, period. Like, there's been no other book that I've ever read that's been more actionable and tactical in my copywriting and advertising specifically. I mentioned Great Leads, another very tactical book as well, and a very actionable book. However, Great Leads is more about the specifics of the opening, whereas Take Their Money, it's a copywriting book, but I've really found it useful, as I said before, like high-level advertising concepts. Put it this way, every single ad that I write has the concepts discussed in this book embedded throughout. It's literally that pivotal, or at least it's had that much of an impact on me. Now, book number 12 is the 16-word sales letter. So this is the second book that I would choose if I could only choose 2 to read for the rest of my life on advertising and marketing. And for some context, myself and my company write 30 to 50 sales letters every single month for a wide range of online service-based businesses. And the framework that we use to write those sales letters is the exact framework described in this book, and it works every single time. So if you want to be able to write sales letters that convert cold traffic into paying customers consistently every single time you write it, I'd suggest you read this book and follow it word for word. All right, number 13 is Sales Management Simplified. There really aren't many books to show how to build and run an effective sales team, since it seems to be almost like this elusive topic that most people cannot master. However, my sales team is one of the highest producing and most consistent in my industry, and 80 to 85% of how we run our sales team has stemmed from this book. And again, it's extremely actionable, and if followed, it just works, or at least it's worked very well for us. And finally, book number 14 is The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. So you may have heard of things like recruiting, culture, values, mission statements. You've got to have a big vision, all these concepts. These are concepts that everyone in the business world has heard before, but they are all concepts that people simply regurgitate without ever truly understanding, number 1, what they actually mean, and number 2, how you apply them in a real business to see real results. And I found The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team walks through team dynamics and provides tangible solutions to help any team perform better and produce a higher output than the sum of its parts through building a better culture, having stronger values, and actually getting everyone in the same boat, rowing in the same direction at the same speed. And the way the author Patrick Lencioni explains these concepts is clearer and more thorough than any other book that I've personally ever read. And again, it's the most actionable book that I've read on these topics specifically that I could then go away and implement and see direct results within my team. So they are the 14 books that have had the most profound impact on my career so far. Read them and thank me later. Peace.